Stop judging your situation externally. It's what's inside that counts. It's what's inside that counts. And Eliab starts judging David's motives. He's like, look at this in verse 28. He goes, why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep? Now, all of these things David had taken care of. He's a very responsible young man. But really what's happening here is I believe the enemy is trying to trigger David to get him to fight the wrong person. Because watch, if he stands here and argues with his brother, he will never even see his enemy. This might be the whole sermon for somebody. Now just look straight ahead if you're married. Sometimes you're fighting against what you're supposed to be fighting for. And you have to call a timeout sometimes. You have to sometimes be like, wait a minute, you're not my enemy. Wait a minute, you're not who I'm supposed to be fighting. And if David gets caught up fighting Eliab, he never sees Goliath. If he gets distracted, some of us are defeated simply because we're distracted. Now, you know how the story ends, but think about how it could have ended. David, for the next 2 hours, defends himself to Eliab. Some of you are fighting Eliab today. And because you're fighting Eliab, Goliath continues to go unchallenged in your life. You know you're fighting Eliab if you're still blaming people. David did this move that I want to learn how to do when I realize I'm fighting the wrong enemy. When I realize I'm fighting something outside when I really need to be dealing with something inside. When I realize I'm trying to control how other people are versus trying to have self-control, the fruit of the Spirit for myself. This is a word today. This is a word today. It said that David did something very strategic, and this is like the turning point of the story. It said in verse 30 that when Eliab was going back and forth in David hit him real quick with an insult just to let him know, I'm not a punk. And then after he said what he had to say, watch what he did. David turned and asked somebody else. And watch this. When he turns away from Eliab, it positions him to face Goliath. So whoever is for, you'll never even get to Goliath. You will never even get to the insecurity that is causing the issue if you keep blaming the people who are bringing it out for you to look at. Eliab wasn't the giant. Eliab wasn't the enemy. Eliab was his brother that he was supposed to fight for. So now we've watched David, 2 different alternate endings. If he argues with Eliab, then he misses Goliath. If he doesn't obey his father in a simple thing, then he misses Goliath. It could have, Graham was so prophetic. He said, it could have ended a whole lot different. I was so mad at my mom for forgiving my dad. I didn't think he deserved it. What would that funeral have been like if she had listened to me rather than listening to God? If we weren't even on speaking terms when he died, it could have ended up. And I only bring it up because every story in this room is still being written. And sometimes you think you know how it ends. But what if it's not over yet? It could have ended when David had a bad attitude toward the ordinary. It could have ended when David was fighting against who he was supposed to be fighting for. He could have got offended. It could have ended with ordinary. It could have ended with offense. And it could have ended with only. Do you know only? The spirit of lack and limitation. Do you know only? What Saul said to David? David was like showing Saul his resume. He's like, I'm pretty good at beating stuff that's bigger than me. I beat a lion one time. I beat a bear. Put me in, coach. And Saul said, you're only a boy. I wonder what you're only in your own mind. Remember, Saul wasn't the enemy. Saul was supposed to be the friend. You ever have something inside of you turn on you? You're only. I had it this week. I was thinking that I'm just a preacher, because I was thinking how really influencing culture is done through rappers and fashion and others. And I was thinking about changing a generation, and I felt discouraged about it, like I'm only a preacher. But there's this one verse that always comes up when I think that way. And God told Jeremiah one time, he said, do not say I am only. Well, I was thinking about that. I know this isn't exactly what the text means, but I was thinking how God's name is I am. So when you say I am only, and you're supposed to take God's name, you mess up the name that he gave you by diminishing it in your own sight. I am only. Do not say I am only. Do not say I am only. I'm only a boy. But David said, no, no, no. I've never faced this giant before. Get ready to shout. But I brought the same God to this valley that I brought to the last valley. Because the only reason I'm preaching it is because you're standing in front of something right now. You've never seen this before. But David said, here's the common pattern I've noticed, okay? I dropped the lion. I dropped the bear. It only stands to reason that if the lion didn't stand a chance, if the bear didn't stand a chance, because they opposed my Father's business, if this giant opposes the purpose of God, I predict an upset victory over everything in your life that is bigger than you, that opposes the purpose of God.